In today's video, I'm going to talk about the setup position. This is really important. Don't make an assumption you're doing this correct, because hand on heart, 8 out of 10 golfers that come through that door, or even with people that I work with online, get this area wrong. So I want to run through exactly what you should be doing in your setup position and what should be happening in the early part of the backswing. And I think this is going to change your approach towards what you'll be doing when you next practice. Now, first things first, let's talk about real basics. We need to make sure the club face is pointing towards the direction where we're aiming. However, what we also need to do is we need to be able to control how the club is sitting on the floor. Now, the problem is, you see, is if we hold the club shaft too vertically, then basically the leading edge is going to lift. And we don't want to be doing that with our long clubs. You know, potentially with certain short game shots, you might want to try and use the bounce, which basically means you might want to get the club shaft more vertical so it can glide. But to be honest, in the majority of cases, you don't really want to be actively doing that. So this now means what you have to do is you have to make sure your club face is pointing towards your target simultaneously whilst the handle of the club is ahead of the actual club head itself. Now, a decent reference point is when the club is on the instep of the lead thigh. See what I'm doing here. But this is where I think you need to be careful, because if I sort of hold the club shaft here vertically, so it's pointing towards, say, my belly button, and now I push the hands forward, can you see what happens? When we move the hands forward, it opens the face. And this is what I see with a lot of golfers that really struggle with. So what you need to do is you just need to take a moment and make sure that in that setup position that you get the club shaft, okay, ahead of the club head, and so it's on the instep of my thigh, whilst the club face is pointing in the direction where you're going. Now, it's okay for it to be a couple of, like, you know, minute degrees off here and there, but what we can't do is you can't be setting up like this and you can't be setting up like this, and this is what I see all the time. So a good thing to do, grab yourself a couple of alignment sticks, put one down to represent your target line, about a foot's distance away from the ball, maybe slightly more so you don't hit it on the way back. Maybe 2 feet would be a good reference. And then place another one perpendicular to that. So at least when you're looking down at that golf ball, the butt end of the club is to the left of the alignment stick and the club face is still parallel towards it. And then take hold of the club. Don't take hold of the club like this and then start moving your hands around, because all you're going to do is be twisting and contorting the club shaft, and the club face is never going to be stable. So that's the first thing that you want to do, okay? Get that setup position correct. Now, next thing that we have to do is get the takeaway correct. Because what's happening with a lot of golfers is they're watching videos, and it might be one of mine, where they'll see a video about hinging the wrist and they're just going to town on it. Now you see, if I hold this club out in front of me, my club face is aiming towards my target. If I excessively hinge the wrist, see, the club face just gets more open. So what we want to do is we want to try and keep that club face stable. Now, if I just move the club to the side and move my hands and arms, see the way the club face just points more square towards the direction where I'm going. And all of a sudden, if you can get yourself set up so your club face is pointing where you want the ball to go, if you can make sure the club shaft is sitting correctly, so the leading edge is flat to the floor, and then you can also mimic that with a takeaway, like so, where we get the feeling of the hands moving to my right shoe as the club stays down to the ground, not doing any of this excessive motion like so. So this twists the face miles open. Then all of a sudden you're going to have a real stable club face in your address position and in that first move. And I promise you, that makes such a big difference to your ball striking, you won't even believe it. And all of a sudden, if your club face starts to become much more stable here and here, well, then you're going to improve the quality of things like your directional control dramatically, because most golfers have the club face too open. They have it even amplified more open in the early backswing, and then you're going to like try and expect loads of arm rotation to square it, or you're just going to end up doing a scooping action to hit it straight. So go through these basics, double check them, take your time with it, because it's so important. Everybody gets alignment wrong, and I'll see you guys again really soon.